Hi, I'm Bill Arnold. Thank you for listening to this podcast of Real Recovery. There are many more podcasts available at myfaithradio.com. Your support makes this possible. Thank you. There's that music. It's time for Real Recovery. Bill Arnold on this side of the studio, and just across the way, a man known as George P. Fraser is right there. Hello, George.
Yes, that George P. Fraser.
George. Your stunt double is not here. The original is here.
Nope, I wish the stunt double had been there. I'd be able to walk better than I am now.
That's
but
true.
We had to go through it. How are you, Billy?
I'm good. I want to encourage everyone listening tonight to stay dependent upon God, not your own strength, because your own strength isn't going to work.
True.
Yep.
And you never arrive.
Yep.
And if you think you did, you're wrong. You had a good verse on that when we were talking.
Yeah, 1 Corinthians 10:12 says, "So if you think you are standing firm, be careful that you don't fall." Sometimes I think we can have a sense of overconfidence, and temptation is a serious thing.
Well, you know, one thing about getting older, I'm always worried about falling. So it's the humility that comes. And pride comes before the fall. And every week when we have the opportunity and the blessing to do this show, we're grateful for the ability to do it, and that the station lets us do it in our 15th year, because it helps us so much. And to hear what God does in people, it's not their story. We could fall in all areas, and we have a daily reprieve based on our spiritual fitness. And I always go to step one, Bill, on my life, that we admitted we were powerless. I'm powerless over everything. My next breath comes at the mercy of an all-sovereign God. And my life's unmanageable because I try to run it. Jesus said in Matthew 6:33, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all things will be added unto you." And we hear in the recovery rooms, first things first, and that's where they got that. And then one day at a time, as Matthew 6:34, "Do not worry about tomorrow, for each day has enough trouble of its own." So we talk about here on the program that you need to have a structure. Bill, you're very structured in what you do. I am too, from the minute we get up. God, hello, basically I'm up. Keep me sober today for me. Keep me cancer-free, and let me know what you want me to do. We both get that coffee going with heavy whipped cream now for both of us. You are leading the way on that. And see what God has for us today, not what I have for God.
And thank you for calling it discipline and not boring. Because sometimes our routines can appear to look boring, but they're nothing like that. They're a very important part of our day, the structure.
I think it's the best part of my day. Left to my own, I blow up.
Yeah. When you talk about step one, George, we admitted we were powerless over our addictions and compulsive behaviors. It goes something like that, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. I always go to Romans 7, verse 18, that says, "I know that nothing good lives in me, that is, in my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out."
Yeah, and I always don't always have the desire to do what's good. We were talking on the break, and I said to Ryan, Satan doesn't tempt me with anything I don't really want to do at a certain level. And that hasn't changed. In our Bible study today, pardon me?
Yeah, he knows your numbers.
In our Bible study today, we were in the book of James, and one of the questions was basically, when you decide not to sin, do you do it because you love yourself or you love God? And the reference was Joseph with Potiphar's wife. And he said, how could I sin against God by doing that? And I said, for me, that would be like reason number 45. Mm-hmm. I don't want to, be humiliated. I don't want the embarrassment. I don't want the weight of sin. And it shows that we all have a long way to go, because I don't know anybody who goes, well, I don't want to do that against God.
Mm-hmm. Well done, George. All right, we're going to take a little break and come back with Caitlin Hawk. She's our guest on the show, and we're looking forward to hearing her very amazing story. You will be engaged, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Real Recovery. Bill and George. We've got a very special guest. Caitlin Hawk is going to be on the show tonight, George. We've learned a lot about her already, and it's going to be great to hear her story.
It will be.
Yeah.
That first set was great.
Of course it was.
It was really good.
Of course it was, George.
Yeah.
Don't ever question that first opening segment.
No, it's my favorite.
Always the best, yeah. Caitlin, so glad to have you with us today. Thank you for saying yes to our invitation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to be here, so thank you for having me.
Yeah, we love stories of transformation. You've got a great one. So maybe you would start us on your journey. Tell us what life was like growing up, what family life was like, what were your friends like? Did you move around? Did you play sports? What happened in that early years of young Caitlin?
Yeah, so I had a pretty good upbringing. I was actually adopted from birth. And so my birth mother was 19 when she had me. I had wonderful Christian parents that ended up adopting me. And I grew up going to church every, Wednesday, every Sunday. I was really involved in I was called GAs, Girls in Action. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I was brought up kind of in a more Baptist type of culture. And so I did that growing up, and I was very, very, very involved in sports. I started playing all sports pretty much, but specialized in tennis and actually began training to go on the junior pro tour at a very young age. Was traveling around playing national tournaments for tennis, and that pretty much consumed my life. And had really good friends. Things seemed to be going pretty well. I had a younger brother, and yeah, our family was just we're from West Texas, so we went to football games. Everything was pretty normal from the outside. So yeah, growing up, things looked pretty normal and were great up until about middle school. So yeah.
Okay, so if you're on the tennis court 7
Mhm.
hours a day, you know the discipline and the commitment it takes. You don't have a lot of time for other
Mm,
activities. So I
mm,
love that about being focused in a sport like tennis or any other sport where you're that involved every day. So,
yeah, yeah. So I during the summers I pretty much was I did tennis camps, and like you said, we would be on the court 7, 8, 10 hours a day, just kind of consumed by that. And my other sports I played were soccer, ran track, played basketball, volleyball. And so just really was naturally geared towards challenging myself physically as an athlete, and really thrived in that environment. I would go home after soccer practice and make up my own boot camps and challenge myself. So I just always had that kind of natural bent towards athletics. So yeah, very, very self-disciplined from a young age. So yes.
okay, so you've got a loving family, you've got
Hmm.
church activity, you're
Hmm.
involved in sports. I bet you're good at it too. In everything. I
Yes.
mean, I hear the tennis. I hear the tennis experience, but also everything else, the soccer. I bet you're good at everything. That's my guess.
Well, I wasn't good at math, but sports, yes, I was.
Yeah.
I was very. God definitely gifted me athletically, and that was pretty evident early on. And my parents, they would tell you, coming from their own mouths, they said this. This is not my judgment because I did not know them growing up, but they said, they were not athletic at all, and so they just kind of were along for the ride with my athletics. They were like, we knew you were gifted. We just didn't know really what to do with it because it was evident you were going to go really far in athletics, and we had never experienced that.
Mhm.
So,
And then, Georgia, I assume you heard Caitlin say that everything was good until middle school. Did you hear that? Were you paying attention?
I got lost on the girls in action thing.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to go
I
back.
figured that threw you
Yeah,
off.
that
I
was the
figured
last
that
one.
threw you off. I'm just seeing if George is paying attention. Apparently, he sort of is. So let's go back to middle school. What happened in middle school?
so middle school, I feel like that's kind of when I started to really struggle with feeling like I was fitting in with certain groups, because most of my friend group that was around the neighborhood and in school, they were sort of athletic, but they were kind of, it wasn't their main thing. And so, they were forming friendships outside of sports. They were going to dances. They were having, time together and quality time together. And I just found that I was really struggling with I just feel like I don't fit in. It was like I was always kind of, this sounds weird, but I was always kind of on the outskirts because I was experiencing a higher level athletically, and I almost wanted to shrink back because of that to try to fit in. But it's like I was in this world of I want to go be a pro tennis player, but I also want to fit in with my peer group. And that's when the lies started entering my mind, on the tennis court and outside of the tennis court was, you're less than, no one wants you, you're a failure. And that's middle school's when I started looking back. Now I can see it was spiritualized. That's when the lies started happening, was, just interactions with friends, not feeling good enough, not feeling, pretty enough, not feeling like I was worthy. And that's when I realized, looking back, that is when the enemy started planting lies in my heart.
You look like on your picture that you're a lot younger than we are, and most people are. But growing up in my neighborhood, 3 of us played college hockey, and the best one was my sister. But back then, Title IX was an easy bake oven and a mop. And so she never got to play. Were other girls playing sports?
I just got that.
Did you? I'll slow it down. I forgot Bill was here. Yeah. So was it that unusual when you were growing up to have a girl be an athlete? Because nowadays it's very acceptable.
It was normal to play, middle school sports, but it wasn't common. Like there was no females around me playing at a very high level, athletically. There wasn't even, like, looking back at soccer, now you have club soccer. Our oldest daughter plays that. There wasn't even true, like, club competitive soccer at that level or anything. So I was pretty isolated as far as being at the level of play I was at. I would say I didn't know anyone else at that level of play. So yeah, pretty isolating.
Pretty lonely, huh?
Yeah. And, also looking back, and now that I have 2 daughters that play team sports, I was playing a, individual sport. So I was traveling alone. If I lost a match, it was all on me. If I was struggling, it was all on me because your coaches couldn't coach you from the sidelines. It was actually illegal. So you'd have to wait. If you split sets, they could talk to you. But other than that, I had a little journal on the tennis court. I would journal my thoughts and try to coach myself. So yeah, it felt very, very isolating.
So impossible to do that and have the social life you wanted. So something has to give here, right. I'm assuming.
Right. And I think too, like, there just became this sense of pressure to perform for love. It was like, Caitlin, if you lose your ranking nationally and statewide, you'll lose your sponsors. At that time, it was Wilson and Adidas. And so I was, really excited about those sponsorships. But once you get the news, if you lose your ranking, then they take that away. It was almost like, you're 10, 11 years old. You're like, well, golly, I have all this pressure now to perform and maintain something. And I couldn't function with all of the pressure and thoughts and isolation I was experiencing, and started really struggling with depression and anxiety really, really bad.
Well, that doesn't surprise me at all, Caitlin, because that is a lot of pressure for a 10, 11-year-old girl to try to not only be excellent, but also to try to have fun at what she's doing. How can you have fun when you're risking losing your sponsorships and having Adidas and Wilson say, nah, no more gear, no more stuff?
Yeah. You're right. And I just kind of, looking back, now being a parent, I look at those tennis tournaments I went to, especially like national tennis tournaments, and the parents were berating the kids. They were shaming them when they would lose. And luckily my parents, like I said, weren't athletic enough to have any input really. But, my parents were pretty encouraging, but they told me, they were like, you were already beating yourself up on the tennis court. We didn't say a word. Like, this sounds crazy, but there was this thing back in the day where you would put a rubber band, like from a newspaper rubber band, around your wrist. And if I missed a shot, I would yank that rubber band and let it slap my wrist as like punishment almost.
Wow.
So yeah, very, very dysfunctional. No, I was not having fun at all. It took me, after I stepped away from tennis, it took me almost 6 to 8 years to even be able to hit on a tennis court without feeling nauseous or crying. So yeah, it was a lot of pressure.
That's sad.
It is sad. And it's also seems a little unfair. And Ryan, you can talk to this as well. When you hear about people playing tennis and you can't really interact with your coach. You can look, but you can't really get coaching. And what other sport doesn't allow coaching?
Right. Right. I mean, I don't know any other sport. I don't know golf that well. My husband plays it. I'm not super into golf, but
Yeah.
he says they have a caddy that can talk to them and,
Yeah. Right.
so yeah, it's pretty
Your
isolated.
George, your caddy used to say, "Just leave the course now, right? Just quit."
Well, when he saw me, he said, "Oh no!" So it was. I was thinking, no, that's interesting. I was a baseball, hockey guy, and always, Bill, you were tennis. No coach during the match, but before, right?
Oh,
and
definitely
after.
Before and after. But what you really want is a couple comforting words if you're down a set and you just need some encouragement. But you can't get it.
I'm shocked you were ever down at set. You weren't, were you? You just said that for the show.
I'm just using that as an example.
Hyperbole, yeah.
Hyperbole, yes. I'm taking liberties here, George.
Yeah, I know. This is true. That would be tough. I see today going to kids' games. When I played baseball, varsity at a real early age, my dad never came unless he had something else to do. And now all the parents go, all the grandparents go. They have like these tent things they sit in. And I always think that's a lot of pressure, to win and be good. And it's professionalized at a young age. Tough.
You're right. You're right. It's actually, we're watching it with our oldest daughter in soccer right now. She's very, very gifted. And she's even talked to us. She's like, I really want to find like a Christian, like sports health, mental health coach, because she's like, I just start to buckle under pressure. And I'm like, Lord, there has to be a way to separate this. And what I'm looking back on and what I talk about in my book is the separation is your identity. When you put your identity and your worth in a sport and it becomes, who you are, how much you're worth, that's when the fear and the pressure comes in. But if we can, as believers, be rooted in who we are when we step on a tennis court or soccer field, then win or lose, you're still the same person. You're still the same vessel of love, whether or not you're performing well. And that's easier said than done. But I know that's the key ingredient, And so we try to instill that in our kids as much as we can. They still struggle, but I think it's spiritual battle in nature. So yeah.
Well said, Caitlin Hawk. We're going to take a little break and come back, hear more of Caitlin's story. You're listening to Real Recovery with Bill and George. Be right back. We're back, Real Recovery. We're talking to Caitlin Hawk. And great story, great start so far, George.
It is a cool name, too, for an athlete. Hawk Harrelson, remember him?
I don't. How old of a reference is that? Hawk
70s, White Sox first baseman.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I should have forgot. I forgot who I was talking to.
Really?
Yeah.
He's a great announcer. I'll back you up, George.
Thank you.
He's a great announcer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to get paid back. He's turning red.
That'll cost you somewhere.
Put your seatbelt on down there.
Yeah.
Are you in Texas?
No, she's in Tennessee, Knoxville.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're originally from West Texas, though. But now we live in Knoxville. So.
Yeah. Caitlin, let's continue your story. Let's look at what happened when things started going bad, and then things got worse, and then we're probably rock bottom. So take us on that journey.
Yeah. So I probably starting, I would say 7th and 8th grade, I really started to despise tennis and really took a step back as far as wanting to pursue any type of, professional career in tennis. But I continued, playing, but my heart wasn't in it. And so what ended up happening was I finally got so burnt out that I sat my coach down and was like, I'm quitting. Like, I'm so done with this. My parents can tell you, they took me to a tennis tournament like the day after Christmas, and I pretty much didn't try. And they took me home, and I was like, I don't really care anymore. Like, I'm pretty much done appeasing everyone. And so at that point, when I quit tennis, like you said earlier, I had a lot of time on my hands now, right? You go from training after school and before school, and now I had all this time on my hands, and I thought I was going to have, the experience of a lifetime, being social now, having all these friends. Well, I started to realize people without a goal and a vision in my grade at the time, who I was surrounding myself with, they started to get into drinking as young as 7th grade, 8th grade. and started, becoming promiscuous and all these things. And I was like, well, this is something that I want to start, experimenting with, because I felt so broken inside just from not knowing who I am, feeling like a failure, feeling worthless. And I remember the first time I drank was in seventh grade that summer before eighth grade. And I started to try to pursue boys to get attention and find worth and value. And eventually it ended me up going down a deep path of destruction and depression. And I ended up going to family counseling for the first time and felt really shameful for that. And I realized my family didn't show up, they only sent me. And so at that point, I just felt this sense of shame. Like, you failed at tennis, you have to get help from a counselor, you're struggling with depression, you still feel unwanted. And then this is where that eighth grade year, summer before ninth grade, is where I really started struggling bad. So,
All right,
yeah.
You're still a very young woman, and now
Mhm.
you're shifting from a very daily discipline to
Mhm.
a very undisciplined life, where
Mhm.
you're seeking now something that is, you're on a path to destruction, aren't you? What happened next?
Mhm. So I, like you said, yeah, went from being very disciplined to really, I'll use a Bible verse in this sentence, but I started sowing into my flesh pretty much day in and day out for the next few years, and that looked like, getting blackout drunk summer before ninth grade, started sleeping around, started experimenting with drugs starting in ninth grade. And eventually, because I was so undisciplined, I was like, this is the lie I believed. Looking back, I didn't know it then, but I know it now. I believed that if you lived unrestrained, meaning no self discipline, no goal, then you would live in freedom. Little did I know I was a slave to sin. I literally was a slave to sin, and I didn't know it spiritually. But I ended up going through a really dark time in ninth grade, became suicidal, started abusing drugs at a really high level, and stopped going to school altogether. I mean, when I look back, it was total destruction. Like, I kind of was an extremist, as you can tell, maybe from an athletic standpoint, wanted to go pro, is all or nothing, to I'm going to go party, all or nothing.
Can
So,
we back up, excuse me,
yeah,
for a minute?
yeah.
Well, I always ask people on the show if they remember the first time they got the feeling. You said you had started drinking in seventh grade, and a lot of us
Mm,
start drinking, but we don't get that
mm,
feeling. And once we do, it's a game changer. Do you remember that?
mhm. I do. I will say, when I drank in seventh grade, it wasn't enough to really, I wasn't drunk. I was just kind of experimenting at that time. Ninth grade, summer before ninth grade, is when I got like blackout drunk. And I was like honestly excited to find something that kind of numbed the pain for a little bit and made me feel invincible. Like, it's like my insecurities went away. My depression seemed to go away when I was drunk. And I felt like I had found something that could heal the pain inside of me. And I really believed it could. Like, I mean, I was under the impression this was the answer. So, yeah, I was, at that point, looking to alcohol to help with my emotional wounds. Yeah.
I read something the other night, reading a book, and the guy's in recovery, and he said that our drinking allows us the comfort to do things that we know are against our conscience. And
Yeah.
I thought, man, that was good. But
Yeah.
this is going to change everything, except it
Mm-hmm.
does in the wrong way. So you were blacking out ninth grade.
Yeah, I thought, in looking back, I kind of thought it was normal, which is weird looking back. I think I've always been a risk taker. Even now that I'm a born again believer, I've always had a personality that's kind of a risk taker, whether that's in a business endeavor or whatever. And so when I experimented with alcohol, I was like, it's all or nothing. Like, it was an adrenaline rush. And I was kind of bored with life because I didn't have, the goal of going pro and that excitement and that adrenaline. So it was like, oh, well, then I'll just get blackout drunk and go as hard as I can into this party scene, but the issue was, yeah, it can numb your conscience for a time, but you wake up the next day with all the shame and guilt. That doesn't go away. Um, and so that just progressed into the next years of high school, and we can get more into that if you guys want. But I was just starting that ninth grade year. I remember, like, that was the first year, because I stopped going to school and I was abusing alcohol, that I didn't end up going home a couple nights, got the cops called on me, and my parents ended up sending me away for my first stint in rehab for an entire year, and that was my freshman year of high school.
Oh
So,
my. Wow.
hmm
You went away your
yeah.
whole freshman year of high school. You were in rehab.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it was started in I believe, and I'd have to ask my parents, I believe it was halfway through my freshman year into sophomore year.
Okay.
Because I remember yeah. So it was around that time period when I was like 14, 15, maybe about to turn 16 years old. So yeah, between freshman and sophomore year was my first stint in a year-long rehab.
Okay. So
Yeah.
the good news is you get out of rehab and then you never use again.
Mhm. Yeah, well, the opposite was true.
I got to
Yeah.
think, I didn't go to rehab till I was 20, and I thought they were going to teach us how to use and not get in trouble. I thought it was fraudulent. But it's got to be really hard because it was impossible at 20 for a 14, 15-year-old to go, I'm never going to use a mood altering chemical again.
Right, right. Well, and I don't know your experience in rehab, but my experience with the people I was around, I actually learned how to do worse stuff. And we were all pretty dysfunctional living together for the entire year. So, I still had all this, and it was a great place to be for the time. I wasn't killing myself or killing someone else, but I would say it was a good place to be as far as safety goes for that year because I was driving drunk. No, so yeah, I was 16. I was 15 turning 16, I guess.
Wow.
No, I was no. I was driving drunk after I got home. But it was a good place. The only issue is I learned behavioral modification. I wrote this in my journal while I was there. I said, "Who am I?" And I wrote this question mark and I remember journaling about it, like, who am I? And that question was never answered, but my behavior again was supposed to be going home, getting it together, having it together, not rebelling. I had a handbook for if I made a mistake, I would be punished. So it was kind of the same cycle of tennis in a weird way: perform for love or you're punished. And that's pretty difficult to do when you're struggling internally and the wounds are getting worse and worse. So
So Caitlin,
yeah.
what was the next big consequence
Mm.
that started to
Mm.
cause you to hit the rock bottom?
Yeah, great question. So I get out of that first year long rehab, get back into school, and started experiencing insurmountable amounts of shame because everyone knew I'd been sent away, and I just felt like an utter failure. And so I began drugging even worse through pills. And by this time, I believe I was 16 or 17 years old. And I ended up getting a hold of some pills. I believe it was Xanax and ecstasy. And I ended up taking a lot of them. And I was also smoking pot, drinking alcohol, and on Adderall. And so my parents actually found me in the entryway of my house, and I'd overdosed and I wasn't conscious. I was throwing up and my eyes were rolled back in my head. Gruesome scene looking
Yeah.
as a parent. I can't imagine. And so they ended up taking me to the hospital, and they were like, she's going to be brain dead or die with the amount of substances inside of her. And luckily that wasn't the case, but that was a huge rock bottom moment for me. But again, because I kind of was living in a immature state, I got out of that and went back into the party scene again. And so yeah, but that was a rock bottom point as far as almost dying, and just getting to a point of complete darkness. So
So you go back, so you're going to moderate it a little, right?
yeah, that after that, I think that's where I really just everyone had heard about how screwed up I was. So that was really the point where I was so ashamed of myself. I couldn't live with my own thoughts that I started, getting high and drunk at school, and selling pot, got arrested. This was just my whole high school experience. It was just like drugs, alcohol, going to rehab. That's all I really remember about high school. And so that continued on until I graduated high school. So,
I
Well,
think you should have gotten a letter for going to rehab. Put that on the letter jacket, like the basketball guys.
hey, oh, so back in the day, I don't know if you guys remember this, but MTV reality television. I do not like MTV, by the way. I'm just saying this, but this was back then. MTV had a show called Real Life or True Life, and it would say True Life, I'm a shopping addict or whatever. Well, in rehab, we made these shirts and it said true life, ... I'm in rehab. And so we were all like, we just need to wear these because we went to public school there in rehab. So we just like wore it with pride, but really, everyone's feeling shame. But yeah, so.
Did you get some stuff from that rehab, though, that later sunk in and helped you? I went to rehab 3 times. And looking back, every time I got a little something, I just wasn't ready to commit to it. Like there's no way I was going to commit to it.
Right. I mean, I'm sure I did, but again, I would say it was more of a behavioral modification rather than an internal transformation. And so it kind of just felt like I was, being taught rules to follow, but there was no, I will say at that time, there was no heart transformation whatsoever.
Exactly. Yeah. The question, who am I, is the whole key.
Yeah, it's a big one.
So, that's right. That's right.
Caitlin, start talking about your transformation. That's the most exciting part of the show.
Yeah. So I get out of high school and still partying, still in that whole scene, and end up dating a guy. And it was pretty toxic on both ends. He was not the only issue. I had my own issues, but I ended up getting pregnant with twins at the age of 19. And I was still very suicidal, still very depressed and struggling with anxiety. So I was still abusing alcohol at that time while I was pregnant. And that's not something I'm proud of, but it's just the reality of where I was at and how I was thinking in my mind at the time. And so when I found out I was pregnant, I had a lot of people try to get me to abort the twins, and like you don't have to go through with this. And there is something inside of me, and I'm not saying that I was some superhuman in the midst of this. Again, I was drinking while pregnant, but because I was adopted, I just knew that's not something I could ever go through with. And so ended up going through with the pregnancy, but still drinking. And so the turning point really happened. This is like a pivotal night for me, and I'll never forget it. I was at a party, high and drunk. I think I was 4.5 months pregnant, and I just looked around at this party, and I just kept thinking, like, this is not who I want to be. This is not what I want. Like, I need help. And by this point, I didn't talk about the other rehabs I had been to, but I'd been to psych wards, counselors, all that, and I just didn't know how to get out of it. So I had heard about Mercy Ministries through a friend that had gone through the program, and I knew her from my hometown. So I had that in the back of my mind. And I told my friend, I was like, you need to take me home. I need help. I can't live like this. And I went into my friend's car while she was still in the party. And this moment changed everything. I remember getting in that car, high and drunk, crying out to Jesus, saying, I need you to save me. This is not who I want to be. I can't continue on like this. And so I asked her to take me home at 5 a.m, woke my mom up, and I said, I want to go to Mercy Ministries, and I can't live like this. Like, I can't live suicidal and drinking while I'm pregnant. And she laid her hands on me and she said, she is crying out for mercy. Have mercy on her, Lord. And the next day we called Mercy, and they were like, I'm sorry, there's 700 girls on the waiting list. It'll be a year before she can get in. And my mom said, we don't have a year. We have 3 lives at stake. So she laid her hands on me again and prayed and said, God can make a way where there is no way. And she said, we're asking you, God, to move on her behalf. Long story short, the next day they called us and said, pack her bags. The Lord has made it clear she's supposed to be here. A girl gave up her bed for me, and she slept on an air mattress. Yeah.
Wow.
So that
cool,
that was that was a huge turning point to see God move on my behalf when I didn't have anything together. I was a mess.
Boy, the power of prayer.
That's right. That's right. And that ministry, I went there for, I believe, 9 months, and I ended up choosing to place the twins for adoption, and got to pick out the family. And that 9 months, what transformed me was the pure, unfiltered gospel that in Christ you're a new creation. All old things have passed away, all have become new. You're not an addict, you're not an alcoholic, you are the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. And I went through counseling there. I started breaking agreement with the lies the enemy had spoken over me from a young age, and began learning about nutrition and just it's a place where they teach you to be healthy mind, body, soul, spirit. And so I spent the next 9 months being inundated in the truth and worship and all of that. So
George does a lot of work. I think one of your master's degrees. I don't know how many you have, 2 or 3, but
just one.
Just the one.
I like that 3 thing though.
Yeah, I thought
I
that
got
would
like 5 of them.
sounds
I don't
smart.
know. Yeah,
kind of fluff your ego up a little bit,
Yeah.
wouldn't it? If I mention that. But as far as using exercise and that natural adrenaline that you get from, you can get high exercising. That's George is
Right.
big on that. It sounds like you did that as well.
Yeah, I actually, once I got out of Mercy, of course, you guys know if you've been in rehab, once you get out, you have to learn to walk in a new way. And for me, it was really hard. I hadn't worked out as an athlete in probably 8 years. I was used to just drugging and drinking. And so the Lord, that was one of the first things he started implementing in my life was, Caitlin, I want to teach you how to buy in to the concept you had at a young age. And that's self-control, self-discipline, where you walk in your spirit and not your flesh. And I started going to the gym. The first few times I remember trying to show up at the gym after all of this past stuff, I literally sat in the gym parking lot and ended up turning around and going and getting cheese tots. Like I was very intimidated and scared, but throughout the years, the Lord redeemed that. And I've been a strength coach. My husband and I ran a gym for 7 years. And so, yeah, it's a huge part of my life now. So,
Wow. All right, Caitlin, we're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back and find out what God's doing in your life today and how you're walking out your faith and your sobriety. And we got lots more we're going to have with Caitlin Hawk in just a minute. You're listening to Real Recovery with Bill and George. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Real Recovery. Bill and George, we've got today on the show Caitlin Hawk. Not only, George, she has an amazing story, but she's written a book called Overcomer Overcome, Finding Freedom from Addiction, Shame, and False Identity. That might be an indication as to what you've been doing lately.
yeah, now that the book's been released and I've told my story, um, I feel like God is just using it to redeem every part of my past as far as being able to help other people get out of the lies and the shame and addiction through understanding our identity in Christ. So that's really my passion these days is recovery ministry and also instilling in our kids and our daughters, a heart for the broken. So that's a huge part of our lives right now.
Mm-hmm. What would you say to someone who is cycling through the same struggles? They have a little bit of success, and then all of a sudden they're back to being square one or minus square one. What would you say?
Well, I could say number one, I can relate because when I, got out of all these rehabs and facilities, I struggled as well. It wasn't an overnight thing where my healing happened in 1 week. I talk a lot about in my book the concept of seed time and harvest time and how when you're sowing into your spirit versus your flesh, it takes time to grow and it takes time to be transformed. But the biggest ingredient and the only ingredient is understanding identity in Christ and continuing to renew your mind to the word of God. That's where transformation happens. The word says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so, it's a process. It's going to look messy and that's okay. Like it took time for you to get into addiction. It's going to take time to get out of it. And so my encouragement is, when you fall, be okay with getting back up and starting again. God's not looking for you to be perfected in one day.
I like the Romans 12:1 reference, and the rest of it, I think, is offering your body as a holy living sacrifice acceptable to God. And for me and the guys I work with, the endogenous induced endorphins from working out help you to replicate one of the things you like to do when you use, and that's change how you feel. And then it becomes a lifestyle. Sounds like you're that. Do you and your husband have a ministry at a church? It's a recovery ministry, or how do you work that out?
So my husband and I we used a lot of ministry in the fitness world. When we ran a D1 in West Texas, we had a lot of people that would never darken the doors of a church, but we would minister to them during workouts. And I would teach at local gyms about kind of like what you're talking about, actually, just like a lot of people in America are struggling with depression and anxiety. But if you look at a lot of what's happening, we're not working outside with our hands like the Bible talks about. We're not being diligent because our culture tells us that sedentary lifestyle will satisfy us. And so I teach a lot on that. I taught at local churches in a wellness capacity as well as gyms. And so right now I'm actually recently started a recovery ministry class at a local community center here for Friday nights, so that when people are wanting to go out and party, instead they can come to this class. And we're using some material that I've used in the past by Neil T. Anderson. And so yeah, my husband, he's a part of it, but he is more on the administrative side of things. So yes.
That's the bondage breakers, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm
Yes.
a 12-step guy whose higher power is Jesus, but I'm all for incorporating, not working a program, but living whatever
Mm-hmm.
program that you work to honor God that keeps you on the line. I've seen a lot of people fall off in my time.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I never want to get too confident that I don't need to keep picking up my cross and denying myself every day. Sarah?
Yeah, so one of my biggest things after all the rehabs and all that I went through was they kept telling me, well, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. And I heard that my whole life. And when I came to hear the truth of who I was in Christ, that when I began meditating on that concept that now it's Christ lives in you, your sin nature died at the cross, you were resurrected to new life, you have new desires. Man, that broke the desire for substances. And so I thought my entire life I would struggle with, oh, I want alcohol or I want drugs. Yeah, that was true before Christ. And then now that I've been walking this out, it's been 15 years of having no desire for a substance. It's not like white knuckling it. It's like, no, no, no. I believe what the word says about me now. And that's the power that breaks the power of sin, is knowing your identity. So that's what we're teaching in our groups, and we're finding is very, very fruitful in the lives of a lot of people that have gone to other programs. So,
Good
and
for
haven't found
you.
freedom. Yeah, yeah. So,
There's a lot
but
of,
yeah,
yeah,
go ahead, go ahead.
Caitlin, there's a lot of people that will say, well, I know I'm saved, but I still feel trapped. I still feel like I'm not
Mm,
free.
mm.
Maybe you could speak to that.
Yeah, I think again, like there's also on top of renewing your mind every day to who you are and who Christ is in you, there's also, and you guys may find this too, there's also really practical things you've got to do. Like, I had to completely remove myself from all of my friend group. I had to cut off contact. I had to stop listening to certain music because it was feeding my flesh and feeding me images of my past. And I just think it's okay to feel like, man, I'm not as far along as I want to be, but the more you plant new seeds and surround yourself with wise people and change your surroundings while renewing your mind to who Christ is in you, over time you're going to experience change. But during the initial stages, I think just being patient with yourself and getting people around you that understand the process is essential. So,
I think not knowing it, just knowing it doesn't do you any good unless you do it. And I
that's
think a
right.
lot of people stumble there, but I hear you on the music. I couldn't listen to the band The Cars for like 10 years after I got
Mhm.
sober because I
Mhm.
wanted to go do coke, And
Yes.
it's amazing
Yes.
how powerful music and things like that are to trigger me back into sinful thinking. And, I just always
Mm.
pray to Jesus, take this away. And
Mhm.
he does. But I like the
Mhm.
physical part too, because
Mhm.
there's a huge physical part to addiction. We like to
Mhm.
buzz, it changes how you feel.
Yeah.
And so I like what you're doing. Keep doing it. It's
Yeah.
great.
Thank you. I love that you just talked about music. I actually write about it in my book. Music is one of the most influential things in this generation. I mean, Satan was a worship leader, and so he knows the power of music and he knows the power it has over people's minds. And I actually at our gym we ran, my husband and I, we challenged the coaches, hey, we want to be playing worship music over these people. Like, we're created to worship Jesus, not people. And so all the songs that talked about drugs, alcohol, adultery, it's like we're not playing that in here. That is literally creating an atmosphere of darkness. And so you even read about it in the Bible. Who was the king? He had gone insane, and I think David played a harp and the demons left. It shows the power of music. So I love that you touched on that.
Well, when I was really struggling, and it took me 7 years to get sober, one of the guys in my group, support group I went to, an older guy gave me a Rachmaninoff cassette. That's how old I am. And he said, I want you to listen to this. I go, I'm not going to do that. He goes, you said you'd be willing to go to any lengths. And I said, are we going to go to ballet next? But I did, just to spite the guy. I get closer to God listening to classical music. I love it. And it's old church music, Bach, people like that. So you're on the right page there, because you get these destructive, sinful lyrics in your head pounding.
Yes.
Bad, garbage in, garbage out.
Yes, that's right.
I like that both of you have spoken about this, because when you have a paired activity, you have to break those pairs up.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if music is a particular kind of music brings you to temptation, break that pair up. Stop pairing that together.
Right. I remember not even being able to go to football games for a couple years. I talk about it in my book, just flashbacks. And this sounds funny, but like the International House of Pancakes, I couldn't go there because I just brought back all these like drunken stupors and horrible images. And so, the other thing I wanted to say really quickly is Jesus's mission was Isaiah 61. That was his mandate: bind up broken hearts and set prisoners free. When Jesus started healing my heart and I got a godly mentor around me and started processing my pain with Jesus, that when he began healing the emotional wounds, I no longer was like searching for all of these things to comfort me or numb my pain, because once your heart is healed by Jesus, then your fruit is naturally going to be good. So it's not like, let's stop the substance and still have a broken heart. Jesus is like, I want to deal with your heart and your shame. And from the outer flow of that, you're going to have a new life in me, So.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to work at it.
Yes.
The old saying is, you don't have to change one thing. You have to change everything. And that's a tall order for people.
That's right. And it's hard, and it's lonely in the beginning when you don't have your party friends. And I don't know for you guys, but when I tried to go back into a church setting after rehab setting, it was pretty daunting and pretty weird. I didn't feel like there was a lot of vulnerability in churches. I felt like, again, I had to perform like I did as a tennis player. And so I'm trying to really break that stigma in churches. Is just like, I think people that have been through rehab have a very powerful voice within the church, because we know what it's like to see real community and vulnerability. Yeah. I think it's powerful. Yeah. So,
Caitlin, we have really enjoyed having you on the show. Thank you very much. And congratulations on your book, Overcome. Finding Freedom from Addiction, Shame, and False Identity. Caitlin Hawk, Caitlin, Hawk.com. Check it out. All right. Thank you again, so Caitlin. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I'll see you later.
You bet. That's all the time we have for today's Real Recovery. George, we'll see you next time.
Look forward to it. All right.
Thanks for listening. Programming like this is made available through your support. Information available at myfaithradio.com.